Greetings, students. I hope this message finds you well. Today, we'll be discussing fire alarms, the different types of fire alarms that are used, as well as how you would wire them and the do's and don'ts. So, when we're dealing with fire alarm systems, we have two types of hardwired systems. Now, there will be some parts that sometimes may be included in fire alarm systems that we may not go over today. But these are the basic parts that you see here that are installed in most fire alarm systems. So we have an addressable fire alarm system and we have a conventional. You ask, what are the differences between the two? The devices look the same, but they are wired differently. So the devices that you see on the screen here, that's a pull station to the upper left, a manual fire alarm pull station, and the wire goes back to the master control panel. Now, on an addressable system, it has an address, so it may have number 25, and then you would program your system to say that number 25 is the basement door on the left side of the building. So you can pinpoint where there's a problem. On a conventional system, it will tell you zone 1, zone 2, and most of the time, the conventional systems only go up to 10 zones, but it doesn't allow you to pinpoint the where the particular device is. So in this instance, a manual fire pull station. So those could get tied in together in a parallel configuration, and one wire run back to the control panel if it happens to be in the same area, or you can run those back individually. The difference between that and a addressable fire alarm, you can have smoke detectors, heat detectors on a loop on one wire. So if you use a addressable system, all of your initiating devices can go on one loop. That saves a lot of time and wire, and it makes the system easier to find out when there's trouble. They are more expensive, but they offer a great deal more flexibility than a conventional system. A conventional system is fine if you have a smaller location, but if you have a large building and multiple floors and a lot of different exits and different points of protection, the addressable system is the way to go. So we'll start off with the addressable system. So the initiating devices only initiating devices with the loop numbering can go on an addressable system. So if you see on the upper left and then the smoke detector, those can go on the same loop. Depending upon the type of system you can have 50 or 60 on the one loop. And as long as they have different address numbers on it, you'll be just fine. But you have to make sure that at the control panel that those numbers correspond to how you program that particular zone to respond. That's very important. So it makes it easier, but what you would want to do is you would want to have each of your devices numbered. Now you can use on a smoke detector where people won't be able to see it or touch it much, maybe a little sticker with a number on it, or you could take the head off, which we don't suggest because then if you go to service it, if you're looking for a problem, so X that one. But you can make it where there's a number, you can write a number on it, and we're sticklers for making everything look neat, or you can print out, a number system on there to identify which device is which, especially when you're programming this. You want to do this and not in the field, program it in your office and put all the numbers. And then when you go to the field, you jot it down in an Excel spreadsheet, and then you just place the devices where you say they're going to be. And it'll make your life much easier. All right, so those are the initiating devices. Also, you see you have a sprinkler system flow switch. So what that does is, in a commercial application where you have a sprinkler system, then that would go around the water pipe. And once that device senses that there's water flowing through there, And the only time the water should be flowing through the pipes and moving is if it's under test or if a sprinkler head has been activated and water is shooting out to put out a fire. So that's the only time that that device should be activated. But that device in a addressable system will also have an address. And it has to be programmed in the panel to say, well, address number 38 is the basement water flow switch. Okay, so it gives us great flexibility. If the authorities come in, if there's a problem, they can come in and find it pretty easily. If there's a smoke detector that triggered, it can be found easily. Or if there's a problem with the device, then you don't have to search around for that device when you're troubleshooting. You can immediately find where that issue is and get it taken care of. So that's a great advantage of the addressable system. You'll pay some more upfront for the materials, but it's worth it in the long run. Okay, so remember, those can all be looped together. So you can run one wire to feed those three devices, and you can run one wire from one device to the next on one loop, on that addressable loop throughout a whole building. And depending upon how large the building is and how many devices, you can get sometimes up to 200 or 300 devices on one wire. So that's really good. All right. So then, as you see in the middle, the fire alarm master control panel. Well, that's the brains of everything. That's where you would program your system. You would silence the alarm. You can also look on the master control panel. If there's a problem in the system, it will help you identify where the problem is well. But this is the brains of the system. So you see an arrow going out to the emergency services notification. So sometimes some jurisdictions, you still have to use a telephone, but that's reducing now because a lot of times people don't have telephones. They have VoIP phone service. VoIP phone service will not work on most fire alarm panels. So we use wireless transmitters, just like a cell phone, and you're tied into your panel, and you have to go to a special central station. That central station, then, what they would do is call the fire department for that jurisdiction and to inform them that there's a fire. But they will call the location first to make sure that the location is okay, everyone is fine there, and to verify that if it's a fire. If they do not get a verification that everything is fine, then they would immediately call the fire department. Okay? So we see we have the input devices, which are the initiation devices, then the master control panel. Now, if you see in the bottom center, you'll see the fire alarm annunciator. Well, what that does is instead of having to go all the way to the panel, the master control panel, you wire the fire alarm annunciator into the panel. And if you have that by a door, exit door, or someplace where the authorities can see quickly and not be put in harm's way, that tells you exactly where the problem is. So just say you're in a 10-story building and the alarm is triggering off. Well, the fire department will come out and say, oh, well, we see where the issue is. It's on the 10th floor by the east elevator. And they would proceed with caution from there. So again, that's a one wire that would run from the fire alarm annunciator to the control panel. Now, with wiring on these systems, you need to use FireWire. And depending upon the length of the wire will determine the gauge. We will normally use 16 gauge wire, sometimes 14 gauge wire for the bells and horns. But 16 gauge wire is normally enough, 16.2 or 16.4. And what that means is 16 gauge AWG, the American wire gauge, and 4 conductors. You will normally find a red, a black, and a green and a white with a red shield around it of wire. It's a hard plastic, but what it does is it's a fire rated wire. So if it's not a fire rated wire and there's a fire, that wire will probably burn up pretty quickly. A fire rated wire will last longer in the case fire has a direct contact with that particular wire. So that's very important. Also, when you're doing fire alarm systems, if you're drilling through sheetrock, you want to make sure that you use fire caulk to close up the holes. That's very important. The fire marshal will fail you and bring it to your attention if that's not done properly. So if you're making holes through sheetrock, you want to make sure that you use fire caulking. Very important. Any holes in sheetrock where you have a fire alarm system, you want to make sure that you have those holes caulked up. That prevents fire from getting to another part of the building more rapidly. Okay. Then you see an arrow going out to the horns and strobes. Okay. And you'll see two differences here. You'll see a horn strobe and you'll see a horn. Well, we'll start with the horn. It only gives you audio on the horn, but the horn strobe will give you audio and visual. But it's very important that your strobe lights are in sync. That means that these strobe lights have to flash at the same time. If they flash in an alternate manner, that's going to be a problem, and you will fail the fire inspection for that. And they have what's called sync modules, and that makes sure that the proper current gets to each strobe light properly so they flash in unison with one another. The reason that is if a person has epilepsy, then the fire alarm strobe lights could cause for them to have an episode with epilepsy. So it's very important that if a sync module is needed because the panel can't push out enough power to make sure that the strobe lights are flashing properly, that you'll need a sync module and a power supply for that matter. And then, so there are other devices. You can have outside bells, which are normally 12 volts or 24-volt DC bells. And those normally go outside, the weatherproof bells. These horn strobes, they normally go inside. Now, these are wall-mounted horn strobes, but you have ceiling-mounted. And occasionally, sometimes they come in white. But for the most part, our fire alarm products are used in red bodies, whatever that equipment may be, as you see here in the demonstration. So inside of this master control panel, you would normally have two batteries. And those are two 12-volt, 7-amp-hour batteries. And without the alarm going into trouble, then you have an expectation of about a day, a little over a day for that panel to stay up, being able to power the devices. Sometimes you'll get a little longer, but if the alarm goes into trouble and the alarm is triggered, then that will reduce the time. But the minimum that you want to use is the two 12-volt batteries, which normally will give you 13 volts DC and 7 amp hours each. So you get about 14 amp hours of backup when you use that configuration. And the way you wire the batteries, you wire them in series. So what that means is the fire alarm control panel has a red and black terminal coming off of it. So from one battery, you would run your red from your control panel to the red of that battery. Then from the black of that same battery, you would jump that over to your positive of your other battery. And then the negative from the control panel will go to the negative of the second battery. So that's how you would wire in a battery in series. And then if you check that battery power, you'll normally get around 27 volts DC. And that's normally pretty sufficient. Now, if you have a really large system and you have power supplies in different parts of the building, then you will need additional battery backups for those power supplies as well. But that's the basic functionality of a fire alarm system. And then you have other devices that you can add in here. You can have voice enunciators that would announce to the occupants of a building that there's a fire and which floor the fire is on. You can also do relays and elevator recall relays. And what that does is you would place a smoke detector outside the door of an elevator, maybe 2 or 3 feet away from the elevator. And if that alarm triggers on that particular device number, so just say it's device number 29, and 29 is the smoke detector on the 7th floor elevator. Well, what will happen is the elevator recall system will not allow that elevator to go to that floor. It will take you to another floor, and you won't be able to exit. So that's another cool device that's used within fire alarm systems for extra safety. Fire alarm systems need to be maintained on a regular basis. Once or twice a year is good, but each jurisdiction is different. You want to find out how often you need to do a fire alarm report and an inspection. And that's something that you charge for. And you go through and you check all the devices to make sure that they're functioning properly, that they're clean, that they are in good working order. Now, if you find a device that's not functioning properly, it's your job to let the customer know what their issue is, but you can't force them to fix it because there's going to be a cost associated with it. And what you would do is on your NFPA 72 form, you would write down that all the system passed except the smoke detector on the 2nd floor, suggestion to change by the customer. Then when the fire alarm marshal comes out, they would have that report. You want to make sure that it's dialing out to the monitoring station properly, that they're getting the signals. You want to verify that with the monitoring station. You want to make sure that the occupants know how to reset the system. If they happen to pull a pull station, they should be left a key or a wrench to be able to reset the pull station. If it's a modern pull station, some of the older ones, they have glass and you break the glass and you have to replace the whole unit. Or they have a spring-loaded mechanism where you still have to open it and reset the spring. So they have different devices, but you want to make sure everything is working properly. If things need to be cleaned up and tidied up, you want to do that as well. If there's something that, just say you recognize or you see that there is dust on a sprinkler head, if you did not install a sprinkler head, do not touch it. You can give your recommendation to the owner, and then it's their responsibility. You do not want to touch a sprinkler head or something that you don't have any business working with, because then you may take on a problem that's really not your problem. So that's it. As always, guys, if you have any questions on fire alarm systems, please feel free to send us a email at info@thelowvoltagetrainingacademy.com. Okay, make it a great day. We'll talk soon.